Welcome back to Sportsbet.io's Champions League podcast. We are looking at Wednesday's action. Joining me is the fantastic football expert, Mr. Rob Daly. And Rob, this Wednesday set of games looks really, really intriguing. We're going to start with Aston Villa against Bayern Munich. Now, Unai Emery has long been, Rob, one of, if not my favourite manager in Europe, possibly in the world as well. He is incredible. What happened at Arsenal would have happened to absolutely anyone who took over after Arsene Wenger. Wolves yet again getting a disappointing result against Ipswich, but playing well for large swathes of it. Bayern looking unbelievable under Kompany overall. What a game this is.
Brilliant game. Big loss for Villa because John McGinn's going to be out, it looks like. I think Unai Emery said the injury was actually a bit worse than they first thought. Hamstring problem. He's going to miss a few weeks. I think he is a big absence. He looked in absence when they were trying to hold on against Ipswich Town at the weekend and failed to do so. Finished 2-2. Brilliant equalising goal from Liam Delap. They scored some nice goals in that game themselves, pressurised the area. Morgan Rogers scored, Ollie Watkins with a header. And in Leon Bailey as well, they've got a player with Bundesliga experience, from his time with Bayer Leverkusen. So I think plenty of reasons, especially with the atmosphere. I think it's no secret that atmosphere is going to be unbelievable. It's not a guarantee, extra goal or two for them because as Olympiacos showed last year, you can go to Villa Park and get a result. But they had a very convincing opening win away at Young Boys, completely dominated and deserved the win. And there's also this added weight of it being a rematch of Villa's greatest ever triumph, the 1982 European Cup final. So lots to like about this game, as well as the plethora of brilliant attacking players both teams possess. And it will be a special atmosphere. It'd probably be the game I'll be picking to watch on Wednesday.
I think the question for me is, obviously we've seen Vincent Kompany do very well in the Bundesliga. It's settled in very nicely. The draw against Bayer Leverkusen, which we talked about on Tuesday's podcast, a perfectly fine result when you consider how good Bayer Leverkusen are. I think this is going to be really interesting to see where Kompany is at. You put him in a Champions League game back in England against a genius, not just in management generally, but particularly in Europe, as we saw in his time at Sevilla. It's going to be a really interesting indicator as to where Vincent Kompany is at as well, I think.
Well, I think you flag Unai Emery being your favourite coach. You'd always told me it was Steve Evans, but sure, it's Unai Emery now.
That's one for the
Sorry, Google him. But that in-game stuff, I mean, this is where some of the best coaches kind of blow me away with their in-game tactics, and Unai Emery can do it. He can readjust. He just knows exactly what's happening. And then it's down to the calibre of players to execute. Bayern, should have won against Leverkusen, in my opinion. They had enough chances to win the game, finished 1-1. And I think they go there in pretty good mood. I mean, they're playing some really nice stuff. They're mega aggressive, not just in terms of pressing, but physically. I mean, this has been a thing that Vincent Kompany wanted. Unsurprisingly, it's what he was like as a player at Manchester City, for all his ball playing acumen and understanding of the game. He was just a brute, and he wants his team to play as such. So, it's going to be really interesting. There was a bit of a concern about Harry Kane. So Kane went off in the second half of the game with Leverkusen. But he came out and did an interview, said I should be okay for Tuesday. He was holding his ankle. So look, they're not blessed with that proper backup centre forward like Villa are in Duran for Watkins, if there was that problem. Tell obviously can play up front. Thomas Muller did it pre-season. But if Kane's good, I think Bayern will look good. He's got 54 goals in 52 games for them, scored 4 in that 9-2 win against Zagreb on match day 1. 17 goals they've scored in their last 5. Really stern test. I cannot wait. I genuinely can't call this one. I think it's going to be a brilliant game, Pete.
Yeah. I mean, Bayern obviously favourites, but Villa might prove to be a bit of interesting value. I also love the idea of Harry Kane doing an interview while holding his ankle.
Is that what it sounded like?
Yeah. The interview was on the ground just going, yeah, okay. Yeah, I just like the idea of that. Liverpool in action against Bologna. I think it's fair to say that Arne Slot's been a bit of a hit so far, Rob. And
Pete, yeah.
I think, listen, Bologna were brilliant last season. Obviously, their manager moved on to a club we'll talk about very shortly as well. They're drawing a lot of games. They're looking not massively ruthless. I think Liverpool, and with all due respect to Bologna here, absolutely batter them.
Well, I think part of the thing as well here for Liverpool is that they're in such good nick. Really, Darwin Nunez was ill for the win over Wolves at the weekend. They had to grind that out, a 2-1 victory. Mo Salah's penalty deciding it. Harvey Elliott picked up a foot problem with England under 21s at the start of September, so he's out. Other than that, 2 players every position. And I think Liverpool are brilliantly equipped right now. And look, you're 3 or 4 away injuries away from disaster at all times. But Liverpool are brilliantly equipped to deal with the rigors of this 8-game Champions League phase. To highlight the point, their preferred front 3 right now, as it was at the weekend, is Diaz, Jota, Salah. The backup 3 is Gakpo, Nunez, Chiesa. I mean, it's a crazy strength in depth. Even Chiesa and Gakpo were brilliant against West Ham in the week in the Carabao Cup. Gakpo especially. And I wouldn't be too surprised if Gakpo came in for this game because of how good he was at Milan. He was the best player on the pitch in that 3-1 win at AC Milan, where Liverpool responded brilliantly to that early goal. So, I think Liverpool will have too much. I wanted to flag one more thing, Pete, about the importance of this game for Liverpool and why I don't think Slot will be messing with the team too much. Off the back of the international break, this is Liverpool's run over a 6-week spell. These are the games they play. Chelsea, Leipzig, Arsenal, Brighton, twice, why not? Leverkusen, Villa, Southampton, the only kind of flat one in there. Real Madrid, Manchester City, Newcastle, Everton away. So Liverpool have got this unbelievable run from mid-October to the start of December where they're going to have to try and stay in everything, which is why winning a game like this feels so important if Liverpool want a top 8 spot in the new look league phase.
And actually winning here and building these points early might relieve a little bit of pressure further down the line in the tournament.
Great point.
So, if you fly into it now, going into a difficult period, when you're in that period, you can start to bring in terrible second stringers like Cody Gakpo.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, Gakpo was incredible in the summer. I absolutely love Cody Gakpo. And also Nunez. A bit of a hill we don't have time for the discussion now, but a bit of a hill I will die on is that I think people talk way too harshly of Darwin Nunez. Way too harshly. I think his movement is extraordinary. But Liverpool against Bologna, I'd be going for a comfy Liverpool win there. We'll head to France, the Pierre Mauroy, and Lille hosting Real Madrid. Madrid, obviously, involved in a very strange game, in some ways, not surprisingly strange, against Atletico Madrid. Thibaut Courtois involved in, I think we'll call it a tête-à-tête, to steal a French phrase. And
Tête of very many têtes against his tête, actually, as it turned out.
Tête-à-têtes. Look, Lille have been okay at the start of the season. I think you could argue a tad disappointing at times, particularly away at, Stade Guichard against Saint-Etienne. Real Madrid still feel weird to me, and I don't quite know why. I can't put my finger on why I'm not wholly sold by Real Madrid yet, despite the fact that they're a solid second in La Liga.
It almost doesn't matter yet with Real Madrid. It's always kind of the case. As long as they're still in the title race come January, February, everything just clicks into gear. They were moments away from winning away at Atletico, leading through Eder Militao. I don't doubt that the crowd disturbance, the throwing of items at Courtois, the stopping the game, maybe disrupted Real Madrid a little bit. But sure enough, they conceded deep into added time, and Angel Correa scored for the 1-1 draw. But they did that without Kylian Mbappe. Mbappe has a leg injury. My understanding, I'm sure he's out for a little while, a few weeks from memory. So he won't be involved in this game, having scored in that opening match against Stuttgart on Matchday 1. They kind of went back in terms of system back to last season's kind of shape, where it's Vinicius and Rodrigo up front. There were rumours that they'd bring in Endrick for that game to replace Mbappe, but they didn't do that. They had Bellingham playing his kind of composite role of midfield and attack. Managed to get the draw. And so I still think, Real Madrid are extremely strong. They have a few injuries at the minute. I still feel they'll go to Lille and win the game. And it's worth noting that Lille had gone 5 without a win before they beat Le Havre, who are down the wrong end of the table anyway at the weekend. Good to see Jonathan David bagging a load of goals in that game, a hat-trick. Yeah. But they're also without Angel Gomez, I think, from memory. I think he got sent off in Lille's opening game, the loss to Sporting. So key midfielder out. Madrid have, I think, the best midfield in the world. It looks a mismatch on paper to me.
And also, I suppose the likes of Bellingham will still not be 100% sharp after the coming into the season and not fully fit. So I suppose maybe I'm not being harsh as such. It's more that I can't quite pin down where they're at yet. I think rather than suggesting they're poor or anything, because their record so far this season doesn't say that. But there's a weird thing where I can't quite click into Real Madrid at the moment. I agree with Rob completely. I think they will click in against Lille and win pretty comfortably. The last game we'll look at on Wednesday is back in Germany, Leipzig against Juventus. Juventus have had a strange old 5 games, 3 0-0 draws in there. They won at the Luigi Ferraris 3-0 Genoa at the weekend. Leipzig, as we mentioned in the Tuesday podcast, got that phenomenal early season win against Bayer Leverkusen. Been a bit weird since then, though. A poor draw away at St. Pauli, a probably fairly poor draw at home to Union Berlin. Did run through Augsburg 4-0 at the weekend, but it's a phrase I use an awful lot. Me and Rob, I think, with Augsburg on the road, we at least have a small chance of not conceding. This is a hard game to call. I would not be with Juventus necessarily.
Well, let's look at Leverkusen first, at Leipzig first, because they were undone by the brilliance of Antoine Griezmann in their opening game. They took the lead early away at Atletico. Benjamin Sesko with the goal after he inspired a brilliant breakaway. And then Griezmann did everything for Atletico, really. He was unbelievable that night, scored the equaliser, made the 90-something minute winner for Atletico. So Leipzig, unfortunate to come up against him perhaps in the absolute peak of his powers. I think you're right to flag that the reaction to beating Leverkusen has been really disappointing. I think Marco Rose can't get away with that. Can't get away from that. They created a lot of chances against Augsburg. Thumped them 4-0. Benjamin Sesko got a couple. Openda and Xavi both scoring. That's what they need. But what was interesting going into that game is that Leipzig ranked 14th for XG, 15th for shots on target, 15th for big chances created going into that match. Obviously, they bumped those numbers up.
Yeah.
But I wonder to what extent there is a bit of, despite all the creative talents they have, especially the returning Xavi Simons, a creativity issue for Leipzig. The same might be said of Juventus. Both teams have been having these 0-0 draws. They had 3 in a row before they won at the weekend and needed a penalty to get the goals going through Dusan Vlahovic, who took his second really well in that game. But ultimately, I think this will be tight. I don't see much in it. Thiago Motta's trying to get his methods across, and that's going to take a little bit of time. So a compelling game in the east of Germany, no doubt.
Yeah, and I suppose maybe I've been harsh on Juve in that their 3-0 draws have come against Roma. I know Roma have got all kinds of problems, but still obviously a decent side. Away at Empoli, which is a tough place to go, and at home to Napoli. So maybe I've been a little bit harsh there in that those 0-0 draws have come in games that were very tricky, and maybe this happens again. A draw in this match, not a crazy way to look at it when you consider how Juve have been going. This game was an intriguing one. I sort of half-sided with Leipzig, but I didn't do it with any great verve or any great desperation. But I certainly would say that it's not a game that looks to me anyway, Rob, like it's going to have a ton full of goals in it.
No, I think that's fair to argue. Look, much was made in Italy, in the Italian media, of the goal drought that Juventus were going through before they won at the weekend. But in reality, in the middle of all that, they beat PSV 3-1 quite comfortably. Yildiz, McKennie, Gonzalez all scoring in Turin. So it's not been the purest goal drought. It's a goal drought in one competition compared to the other. So, and I'm sure for Vlahovic, for whom the goals, do not flow as much as he would like, no doubt, to be a Juventus number 9. Those 2 at the weekend, especially his second where he drove it across the keeper from a tight angle, will be a big boost of him. Couple of really good big strikers in this game, in Sesko and Vlahovic. It should be very interesting. A bit too tight to call for me personally.
That's Wednesday's action. Don't forget you can find it all on the sportsbet.io website. Please do gamble responsibly. Myself and Rob will be back for Matchday 3.